Welcome to the College Admission TV Presidential Podcast. We sit down with passionate leaders in education for their thoughts and insights in today's world. We are excited to have as our guest Dr. Mary-Beth Cooper, president of Springfield College in Springfield, Massachusetts.
I'll tell you, I always love to start with your journey, and I'd love to understand who are the mentors that helped shape your path.
So I started undergraduate at the University of Delaware, hoping to study English and criminal justice, which I did, but I thought of a career in law. And along the way, I met a number of people that were vice presidents and presidents of colleges and universities, and I realized that it was an occupation. You know, when you're a student, you understand people work at the university or college, but I never thought anybody actually went into it as a career choice. And so I had a lot of great mentors along the way, supervisors. Most of them were men early in my career, and they encouraged me to get additional degrees, get your master's, get your PhD, then go get your MBA. And then I got a second doctorate in management because one of my mentors said that would be a great combination of degrees for a college president. And so I spent a lot of time in school, which is okay.
So let's talk a little bit about that career path. So when you look at Springfield today, Springfield College, how do you make sure that students are career ready?
Well, you know, I think about students and I think about my own son too, right? Like, you know, and I still believe firmly in the value of higher education. And I think that a 4-year degree and other degrees, but, you know, primarily my bias is really getting a 4-year degree and graduating. I still believe in that notion of you come and you get a college degree, but you get all the things associated with it. You get the student experience, you get the leadership skills. A lot of our students are student athletes. For those of you that know a little bit about Springfield College, we are the birthplace of basketball, and we're a D3 school. We've got 26 sports and an additional large number of clubs and sport clubs. And so students here are very active. And so from my perspective, it's everything that happens inside the classroom and outside the classroom that shapes leaders and workers. My path to Springfield College was, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, I started in higher education and worked in higher ed. And then when I came to learn about Springfield College, it has a long, long history with the YMCA. We started as a training ground for individuals that were CEOs at the time in 1885 of YMCA. So we were known as a training school for those individuals. And all of my personal life, I had been involved with the Y in Rochester, New York, and was the board chair of the local Y. And so for me, choosing this job, if you will, or occupation, was an intersection between my personal avocation and my professional life. And I think for a lot of people, young people, it's choosing to do what they're going to do and be paid for, but something that they love, especially with Gen Z and those coming up. It's not necessarily just about making money. It's about making a difference and really having a meaningful life. And so I do think it's more than just the job. It is what you'll be doing, and if it also mirrors your values. So,
and I imagine Springfield, Massachusetts. Now, do a lot of students and parents know that it's the birthplace of basketball and it houses the Basketball Hall of Fame? I mean, I would imagine that's got to be a huge positive.
It certainly is in March and early April. And we do have something in January called the Hoop Hall, where we bring in 16 of the elite basketball teams across the country that come here in January. And we certainly play it up, and that's on ESPN too. And our sport management majors run that whole operation. It's a week long, it's really 4 or 5 days of basketball games, and brings in, again, the elite of the elite. And our students run that as a venue. And so when we bring in prospective students, we show them that you could work Hoop Hall and have the opportunity to learn how to do a venue, especially during the pandemic, because they learned how to put all the restrictions in place, what you might do to keep players and fans safe. And so very hands-on learning. And we certainly, and as you drive on campus, there's a big arch that says birthplace of basketball. So it's hard to miss. People don't come here because of that, but it's a fun fact. But we have a long history of sport and basketball, and James Naismith is a part of it.
Well, absolutely. And, you know, I'd love to learn a little bit more about the history. I mean, you have been around a long time. And, you hear about the enrollment cliff, you hear about the challenges that a lot of private institutions and just universities in general are facing, and, just the ability to be sustainable and survive. And I look at an institution like Springfield College and I think, okay, well, you've been through the pandemic, you've been through wars, you've been through a lot of challenging times, and you still have been able to be resilient and survive and thrive. So can you talk about how do you compete and win?
Well, every day we compete. And, from our perspective, and I would tell I'm in my 11th year as president. And from my perspective, it's working at a place that has a niche or it has a piece of distinction, because you cannot be all things to all people. Again, we've been here since 1885. Our mission has been the very same: spirit, mind, and body in leadership and service to others. And so that triangle, which has its spirit, mind, and body and are all sides, that you live in balance, and we educate the whole person. If you were to walk on our campus and ask any of our students what the mission is, I would tell you 99.9% would know it verbatim. They come here for the mission. You go to another school and you ask students what the mission is, and perhaps they won't know. It was in a pretty area. It was in the Northeast. My parents wanted me to go here, but people come here for our mission. The second part of our mission is in leadership and service to others. So our students, faculty, and staff do about 120,000 hours of service each year. So to put that in context, the average four-year private does somewhere between 40 and 50. And so we double that in terms of, we do service the first day students the day before classes. We do service all year long. We did it throughout the pandemic. We have a food pantry on campus. We've got student ambassadors. We have students that work in our partners program with all the local high schools doing tutoring. And so service is a part of who we are. And so when you come on campus, you can feel it. And that, to me, will be the difference between a school that makes it. When I came here, there were 64 four-year privates in Massachusetts. Now there are 59, with a few more closures on the forefront. And I am determined that we will not be one of them. And so I think you have to lean in to your mission, and you can't be everything to everyone. You've got to stay true to your pathway forward. You have to be relevant. And we're looking at our curriculum and the programs that we have. But one of the questions you asked earlier, or going to ask me, is how do you get people ready for a career? Well, many students come in thinking that they're going to be a teacher or a phys ed teacher, or going to go into business. And then something happens, and they have different plans. My son went to school undeclared, graduated with a business degree, worked in finance, and now he's a pilot in the Air Force. And I wouldn't have suggested that he would have known that when he was 17, but now here he is, working for the Air Force and flying planes. And so I think this generation that are here now, and Gen X and Gen Z, they have a lot more flexibility than we did. We kind of stayed the course when we were their age, but now they're looking at all different kinds of possibilities and what work means to them.
Well, so. and there's so many, when you look at majors, and then when you look at jobs, today, jobs that you see today that may not exist in 10 years. And then on the flip side, jobs that'll be here in 10 years that don't exist today. How do you make sure that students really understand when they set their mind on a major, that they understand what that major's gonna get them?
Well, the reality of it is, there used to be career services, and we have a very healthy career services area that works with our students. And used to say, okay, these degrees line up to these jobs. Now, you really can't do that as cleanly as you could before, but you can develop skills and a skill set that will carry the day. For example, we have a very strong health sciences program, OT, PT, DBT. Our health science is a growing program for us. In fact, we just opened a $62 million building, beautiful state of the art, last 2 Fridays ago. And we know that there's going to be a need for somewhere in the area of 2 million healthcare providers in the next 5 years. So we are ready to respond to that. One of the things that distinguishes us as a healthcare provider training is the amount of work that we do with our students on interpersonal skills. They come to us already with many of them, but for anybody that traverses the healthcare system, one of the things that hospitals are measured on is their customer service. So if you go in to get a hip replaced, they may ask you, how was your service? Did you get everything, all your needs met? And especially dealing with somebody that is sick or going through a very frightening healthcare situation, the better prepared the healthcare providers are to make them at ease, to make sure that their needs are met, the better the experience will be. And so a place like Springfield College pays attention to the development of the young people to know it's not just a job, it's about taking care of people and making sure that they get their needs met wherever they may be.
So talk to me about how exciting is it to be able to walk the campus with a prospective student, family, board members, employer, whatever the case may be, and have those new facilities and those new buildings? That's got to be exciting.
It was really, and we built that during the pandemic. And so for anybody that's renovated a kitchen or a bathroom during the pandemic and couldn't get the supplies that they needed, imagine putting up an 82,000 square feet building right in the middle of the pandemic. But from my perspective, and I said this to my team, there's nothing like having a crane in the air at a college or university to demonstrate growth and possibility and promise. And so opening that building again was a wonderful celebration for our trustees and students. And people were not amazed, but they were overwhelmed by the beauty of the state of the art, all the things. It's the new shiny penny until somebody else builds their own shiny penny. But we had open house on Sunday and showing people that building. Students have a lot of choices, and they want a place that has good facilities, great faculty, good food. It doesn't have to be the best food, but it has to be good food and good residence hall. The rest will follow. You put all those places in place with your faculty and a supportive staff, and the experience can be everything the student wants it to be. So it was fun last Sunday having an open house and having so many families here, getting a chance to see our beautiful new facility. So it was fun.
So what's the number one question that you get from parents? And it could be prospective parents, let's say, when they're walking the campus and they're kind of exploring different, where should my son or daughter go? What question do you get from parents? And then also, what questions do you get from students?
So parents tend to be concerned about placement rate. And so, for example, we've got a 97.5 placement rate for all of our students. They're either in graduate school or they have a job. So parents are really concerned from my perspective on, if my son or daughter makes this investment and I make this investment with them, will they get a job or will they be able to get into grad school? And the answer is yes. So placement is something that I always point any parent to, whether they're looking at our school, at another school, ask them how many of their graduates are unemployed, because that's the worst. Students want to know, is it a suitcase school? Are people engaged? And I'll tell you, Saturday we had a women's volleyball game against, and now we're in the championship. So tonight we have a game against another institution. And on a Saturday afternoon at 1:00, it was packed. So we're not a suitcase school. So our students stay on the weekends, come together for other student athletes, and we're a small community. If you were to come to campus, and I would encourage you to, or anybody else, you would see that our students open doors. They make eye contact. They don't walk on the grass. They have this funny tradition of not cutting corners. And so you have to really experience it. So whenever I'm talking to prospective students, I say, you got to come and see it, because everybody's got the same brochures, the same videos. You've seen one, you've seen a dozen. But to come on campus and feel the ethos, it's a game changer. And I've worked at 5 different schools. And when I tell parents that, and I do, and I speak to them at open house, I'm like, you just got to see it. It's really, I can't imagine being a president anywhere else.
Well, and so, I mean, you clearly have something special. When you talk about, oftentimes when I hear about diversity and inclusion, those don't mean much without belonging. And I think you're highlighting specifically, hey, students got to feel like they belong. So how do you make sure that students in general, whatever class that student might be, that student feels like he or she belongs? And I guess I would also say, maybe freshman year, maybe that first semester where you're maybe nervous, you're not familiar with a college campus. How do you make sure that they belong? Because you've clearly established a community that has that sense.
Well, I have to tell you, you have to leave it up to the students. And that was the thing I worried the most about during the pandemic. Would we still have this high level of belonging when we came out of it? Because students were so isolated. And the good news is that we do. And that really is, I give credit to our upper class students. We have a pre-camp program at the beginning of the year where it's competitive to get in, but a smaller group. I think there's somewhere around 50 to 60 students that come and spend. We have East Campus, which is it's a site, a part of our campus. It's right around the corner where students camp and they do outdoor adventures, and that connects them. We have a lot of affinity groups, our athletic teams, our clubs and organizations that connects people. But I always say to the RAs on the night before they open the residence halls, that first night is scary. You've been thinking about going to college. For some people, it's the first time they share a room, and you're lonely. So we keep students through orientation and the first 6 weeks very, very, very busy and engaged. Another thing that I think is really important is we listen to students. Not only do we let students lead many of those activities, we also listen to students, even after, all of the crises that have happened, pulling students together. I had a group of Palestine students at my house Thursday night to talk about how they felt. That we had an educational program last Friday night to continue to educate us about the crisis at large. And I think all students need to feel like this is their home. And that they've got somewhere to go and somebody to listen to. It makes it very easy. I live on campus. My husband and I are very engaged in going to co-curricular activities, and so that we're visible. And I think that's the role of a president, especially a president of a small residential campus where they expect to be known, not to know me. They want me to know them. And we work really hard to make that happen. So that sounds kind of Pollyannish, but it really, it's a really cool place.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, I mean, the fact that students don't walk on the grass, the fact that students are at athletic events, and much more, I think that's really a testament as well. Now, when you look at your tenure, I know, I'm sure it's hard to narrow it down to one or two things, but what are you most proud of?
Oh my goodness. It's easy for presidents to look back on buildings. So we renovated the campus library 6 years ago, and that at the time was a complete renovation. And we made it was an old brick building, and now it's a 24/7 operation, lots of glass, lots of light, and students helped design that. So the Health Science Center was designed by our faculty. And so buildings are easy to look at. But I'll tell you, last Tuesday night, we had an alumni event for our current students. Our alumni came back and talked about their careers and connected with our students, seeing those young alums, many who were students when I was here during my first couple of years that worked for Converse, worked for Travelers, that came back and made the connection to our current students. It's always the people. When we leave here a couple of years down the line, I will walk away with a lot of memories of people and people that have touched my life and vice versa. But I think that's the case wherever you work, where you're able to make a connection. And so I'm really, as I said earlier, I can't imagine being president anywhere else and having this kind of student body to work with.
So tell me about the when you received the news that you became president. Where were you? What was that feeling like?
So I was in Rochester, New York, working at RIT, and it was the first presidency I'd applied for. And lots of people said, "Oh, it's going to take you a while to find the right one," and vice versa. And when they called, well, the story actually is a little funnier. My husband came up with me, and he initially did not want to go to the interview. He's like, "You go for the interview. This is ridiculous. It seems crazy that they would interview me." So he went kind of kicking and screaming, came to the interview. He had the time of his life. He had a couple of drinks with the chairman of the board. He was laughing. And as we walked out towards the car, he said, "I think we got this job. They really liked me." And so I pretty much owe the whole job to Dave Cooper. But it was about fit. And so when they called and said, "We'd like to offer you the position," it was, "Here we go, let's go." And that was, again, 11 years ago. And I had no regrets. I only wish that other people could have a career like mine. And I try to help young people find their path forward and go someplace that brings you a lot of joy. I imagine your job brings you a lot of joy. You get to talk to a lot of different people. Your days probably are exciting. And why spend time doing something that you don't like?
Absolutely. That's right. Yeah. I feel like the position I'm in, especially right now, I feel like you make it easy. I'm asking the questions and just kind of keep the flow going, but you're the one actually giving the thought leadership. So I really appreciate that. So, oftentimes I hear the phrase, if you will, mantra maybe, meet students where they are. What does that mean to you, and how does Springfield College help achieve that?
So it's interesting when you think about higher education as a career. We're seeing people from, for the most part, our traditional students from 17 to 22, right? They're coming to us with no idea where they're going, and they're not with us long. So we get this one window of time with our undergraduates. So that's one set of the population. The other set of the population that we don't talk much about, but I think is equally, if not more exciting, is our adult learners that come back to finish a degree and come back and get their MSW or get their MBA or come back and get a certificate program through our health sciences. But they come in with a greater appreciation about where their education can take them and a little bit more hunger for it. And so when I meet a student where they're at, part of it is they're not sure sometimes why they're here. It was expected. Their family said this is what you're going to do. And it isn't until they engage with a faculty member or a course, or they get engaged in something, whether it's our student newspaper, if you're a sport journalism major, or this hoop hall experience, that the light kind of turns on for them. We had a young man that came through Sportman, and then he worked for the New York Times, and his career is moving on and on and on. And he would tell you that it was one faculty member that did podcasts with him that helped kind of give him a leg up and really kind of give him a chance to test out those skills in a safe environment, which is here. Here's where you want to make most of your mistakes. And you have a faculty member help you adjust, or you do it on film or whatever that might look like. And so I think meeting students where they're at is to give them enough experience that they leave here with confidence that they can keep using again and again as they find new situations that they've got to apply it to. Because that's going to happen in your whole career, whether you're 26 or 63, you're going to find something like the pandemic or the George Floyd murder that you don't know exactly, or the tragedy that's happening around the world. How do you manage it? And presidents, I'm sure you're following that, are, really struggling with, do I say something? Do I not say something? If I say something, will the message be well received? Will I be insulting? And so these aren't easy times, but I think if you, again, stick true to your mission and be as authentic as possible. And I apologized to our population about a message that didn't quite hit the mark. And I just said, let's try this again. And here's how we're going to move forward. I think people want to see leaders that will take responsibility, and also admit an error and be as approachable as possible, because otherwise, we're all learning every day. And it's, hope you make more successes than failures, but, none of us are adverse to making a mistake once in a while.
Can you talk a little bit about affordability? And being a private institution, I think there's just automatic misconceptions around, well, if I go here to this public, well, it's cheaper than the private. And again, I know that's very, brushing it over very, very generally, but can you talk about that affordability piece?
It's real. For families, when you think about, first of all, 100% of our students get some kind of financial aid, and there's lots of financial aid to be had. We're just getting ready to close on a capital campaign, a $50 million capital campaign, where there is a large pillar, if you will, set aside for student scholarship. And we promote that with our donors wherever possible, especially those that received aid when they were a student here many years ago. So there are opportunities, there are work study programs, there's Pell Grants, there are ways to make it affordable. But the reality of it is more expensive than a four-year public. You have to make the decision as a consumer what the value is. And our experience here, that's what we articulate to our families. Coming here provides you lots of experiences, but also a network. So, when you're in Sportman, we've got hundreds of our alums that work for the NBA, for the MLB, that work in the Boston Celtics operation. And so internships, the opportunity to have a network that will give you an opportunity to either intern or get a job. And so you as a family have to decide what's the best for you. We have a lot of legacy. A lot of our alumni send us their children. They do not get preferential treatment through the admissions process. They never have. But when you have a known product, if you will, and I use that term very loosely, that what that experience will be like, that a Springfield College experience is going to look like X, it's easier to sell. And again, we're not a commuter campus. We've got 88% of our students live on campus, so it's a vibrant experience. You'll never, which I often say to students, you'll never be in an environment with this many people your own age ever again, probably until you're in a senior living center, strangely. But for those years that you're on a college campus, that's why I'm like, don't waste it. And usually seniors about this time of the year start recognizing that they're only here for 4 months. It gets worse come March, where they're like, I don't want to go. I'm like, well, yeah, I have to go. There are people coming in behind you and you need to graduate and get on with your life. But being on a college campus where you walk into a dining hall and have great food and you've got all this social activity around you, it's pretty exciting. I don't know if it's the 4 best years of your life. There was times where I didn't feel like it was the best years of my life, but for the most part, it plays out that way.
Yeah, very exciting, unique, without any question about it. Yeah. What does it take to make a successful fundraiser?
Loving your product, right? I mean, I can talk to donors about the Springfield experience and the difference that their dollars make. But to be a successful fundraiser, I felt that way when I fundraised for the Y. And I did that for many, many years. The YMCA was an important part of so many people's lives. And if you had to imagine what it would be like without a Springfield College, that gets people's attention. So many of our alums met their spouses here, their best friends. I Zoom with a group from 1965. We started Zooming during the pandemic, and I would go down and run a 10K with a couple of them in Sarasota every year. And then we started Zooming. I went to their 80th birthday party. That group, and one of them won an award a couple weekends ago at homecoming. They all flew in to be with him. Lifelong friends, especially as you age, you realize what a gift that is. And you find them oftentimes at college. And so you don't often find that if you're commuting. And not that commuting isn't a good choice for some people, but it is through those residential experiences where you have ups and downs and you learn about yourself that are life-shaping. And so for me, working with that group as an example, being connected and connecting them back to Springfield College makes fundraising simpler. Not easy, but simpler, because we just remind them what they already know.
Now, where do you see Springfield College in 10 years?
We'll still be residential. And we are in a strategic planning process. We've done 2 since I've been here, and we're starting another one. We will always have a component. That doesn't mean that our online programs are here, and a number of our academic programs are completely online, because that's what students, especially adult learners, tell us that they want. But we'll always have a commitment to health sciences, physical education, spirit, mind, and body, and leadership and service to others. We will not veer away from that. But I do think that we'll partner with other colleges and universities for things that we don't have, that they may have. I think that collaboration with other institutions is key. It's not always easy to do that because you're collaborating with your competition. But you've got to find ways to do that. Again, I've got a number of presidential colleagues that we're talking about different things that we could do together that would save both institutions funds. And so getting a cap on that affordability is critical. But we'll be here. I won't be here, but we'll be here. I'll be sailing or something fun in 10 years. But now I got a lot of work between now and then to get done. So I'm not moving anytime soon.
Well, President Mary-Beth Cooper, hey, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Well, it was my pleasure. And if you're ever in the area, I'd love to buy you a cup of coffee or buy you lunch. So you can see it for yourself. Love to have you, or you can come to a basketball game. See where it all started.
Excellent. I'll bring my kiddos. That's great.
Oh, we'd love it.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
That sounds great. Okay. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the College Admission TV Presidential Podcast. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we'll bring you another insightful conversation with a distinguished leader in higher education.